Hi everyone, I'm Janneke and welcome to my channel Books and Stitches, and today we're gonna talk about my September TBR. First, a little disclaimer, I have not yet figured out the best way to film these videos, so right now I'm in my at my desk, but my background is my kitchen, so it's kind of messy and full. Please ignore that. I will get smaller in a bit and then hopefully it will be less noticeable. But September is really exciting TBR wise because um, it is Orilium and Everbloom, which are my two favorite readathons of the year. So Everbloom Academy is hosted by Meg Reads. I will post the original announcement video down below. This is the start of the second year of Everbloom. In Everbloom, you go to a school and you take classes, you study, you become a great student. This is this class schedule for this year, this readathon this month. There are three different departments. I am in the Department of Supernatural Investigations, which is based on Amari, and I don't remember what the series is called, but it's a middle grade series about a girl, not oh, a girl called Amari. The departments I think are all based on that, including this one. Um, but that is one of them. And the other readathon I mentioned was Orilium. Orilium is hosted by Q. Um, her her channel name is Book Roast. It has existed for many years now. It's like really popular, so I'm sure you've heard of it before if you watched this video, if you're a viewer of BookTube. But I absolutely love it. It's also a school setting, and you are a mythical creature person and you go to a magical school and take different classes. This year I'm trying to become a healer. So we're going into our second semester for Orilium and our first semester for Everbloom. So both of those readathons are happening this month. I had originally intended to make the TBR with you guys, but I was spending a couple of days at my mom's, and I was there when I saw the announcement videos for both of these readathons, and I was too impatient to wait. So I immediately got ready and scheduled everything and stuff. So my TBRs are set in stone at this point. But I still figured I would share it with you. I think that's still fun and exciting. Um, After I had finished my TBRs, I also saw the readathon announcement by Eleanor Reads for the Rebellion readathon, which sounded really interesting as well. So I did add a page for that as well, but I am trying to just fit in the books that I already have planned. So either for the Orilium or Everbloom readathon, or if they were still open after that, I just did some books that are in my current month's reading plans because Melanor said this is like very free, like go at your own pace. So I figured that would work. So we're gonna start with Aurelium because those prompts I think are the most specific. So there are 6 prompts that I have to fulfill to become a reader. Not a reader, a healer. I have to be qualified. Um, Let me start by explaining that. You can have 3 different like ranks of um like your degree. You can either get an ordinary grade, a qualified grade, or a distinguished grade. And if you need the ordinary grade, you only have to read the one prompt. But if you need qualified, you need to read both the ordinary and the qualified prompt. For distinguished, you have to read all 3 of them. I think officially you also have to read them in order. I don't really do that part. Just gonna be honest with you. I just read them. I hope try to read them all in the month, but I don't try and like fit them in order because my reading is sporadic enough sometimes as it is. So let's first go to elemental studies where I only need an ordinary prompt. For that, I had to read a book with water on the cover. This one is actually one that I ended up picking solely because of Everbloom Academy. I'm gonna put myself away, so hopefully you'll still be able to see everything, even if I can't see myself, because then I can do stuff more easily. So, for that, I will be reading the Chronicles of Weatherwy, Age of Enchantments, because that is the group book for Everbloom Academy. And it's not very visible here, but there is water right here. There are some boats. So this is a middle grade fantasy written by Anna James. I don't know much about this book. I know Mag really loves it. Whoa, that was a bit of a spoiler accidentally. I know Meg really loves this book, so that's why she picked it for the group book as well. And it is, I think, about two siblings, one of which gets like invited to a magical school, and one of which kind of joins a rebellion or something like that. But yeah, it's a middle grade fantasy. Magical school. It sounded fun, and it is the group book, so I wanted to give it a try. And that is what I will be reading for elemental studies. Then we're going to go to alchemy, where I need qualified. So first for ordinary, I need to read a book with a sun on the cover. That was way more difficult than I thought it would be. I looked through all my books. I could only find one that had a sun on the cover, and I was really not in the mood to read that book. That is a book I got for free, just because they were left over at my library. It is a Dutch like thriller, and I was just not in the mood for it. So I looked for my Herkiet list of books that I had to fill like certain prompts that were a bit more difficult. I made like a list of possibilities for some of them. And one of the prompts for Herkiat is award season, where you had to read finalist, a semi-finalist, an entrant, and a winner for like a bookish award. And I chose the Goodreads award because those were the easiest for me to get to. And um, this book was on that list. I don't remember as what. I think it was a semi-finalist, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, it was on there, and there is technically a sun on the cover. It is a bit more of a stretch, but you can see the sunlight through the window. So I am counting that. So it's not really a sun, but you can see sunlight. So I figured that would count. And that is what I will be reading for alchemy. It's not the most like neat on this page right now because I'm just adding them for you. But I have them all added nicely on the page next to it, which I will show you once I have shown you all the books. So next you need to read a book that is the color of your birth flower. And Q had like a diagram of all the months with a flower attached to it. In her announcement videos, she said there are a lot of them out there, so she just picked one for everyone to go with. And my birth flower was a violet. So I need to read a book in the colors of violets. And I think this fits. It's not a violet colored book, like the color violet, but when I Googled violets the flower, they kind of were this color. So I will be reading Hot Sparrow. It is the eighth book, I believe, or the ninth. No, it's the ninth book in the Ranger's Apprentice series. This is a middle grade series set in medieval, not England, but based on England, that I absolutely loved as a kid and I have been rereading. My goal for this year is to get up to book 10, so I need to read book 9 for that. And yeah, I'm not going to tell you much what this is about since it's obviously very spoilery since it's the ninth book, but it is the series in general is about a boy who is at the beginning of the series, he's 15. He needs to be chosen as like an apprentice. He really wants to be a knight, but he's very small. And the knight school is like, we don't have place for you. You're too small. We can't have you here. But then there is a ranger who is kind of like a spy. He's not a magician, but like people in the country think they have like magical powers because they're like they can move unseen and stuff like that. And they're just kind of like they're in every province there's one, and they just like keep order and do everything that needs to be done, whatever that is, like whenever there's a threat. And he does want him as an apprentice, so he becomes a ranger's apprentice. And right now I'm in book 9, but I'm not going to go further into that because that would be very spoilery. But that is what I'll be reading for alchemy. Then next, restoration, I need to be distinguished. So we need to do an ordinary, a qualified, and distinguished to get that. So for ordinary, I need to read a book that is in single POV. For that, I will be reading Sleuths on the Loose, which is based on Myrtle. Myrtle is a puzzle book series, and there is like a spin-off called Myrtle Jr., which is for kids, and that has a spin-off called Myrtle Jr. Sleuths on the Loose, which is an actual fiction book. And I am really interested in what it is. I have played multiple Myrtles, I have only finished one Myrtle book. That is the Myrtle Junior, the regular one, the first one. But I think I own them all. And I love them all and I want to do them all. But I am really curious what the actual story will be. So, as far as I'm aware, this is single POV. I wasn't able to find it online, but just looking at the back and the synopsis, I'm pretty sure this is single POV. So, the synopsis of this is it takes place in a middle grade school. It's a middle grade novel. And Jack, the girl you see in the main cover, she's a detective. She needs to figure something out. I honestly don't remember what it is that she needs to figure out. I don't remember if someone was kidnapped or something was stolen, but she is a detective and she's going to solve the mystery and she's going to get help from two friends. And it just sounds fun and cute, and I am excited to read it. So I wanted to put this on here. And like I said, I'm pretty sure this is single POV. The next one is a bit more specific. This was definitely the most difficult prompt to get. I had to have a random country generator generate 5 countries, and I got like very specific small countries that I honestly hadn't really heard of, and Palestine. So I went with Palestine because I have a book by a Palestinian author already. So I ended up going with something more, which is here, that is by a Palestinian Canadian, I think, or maybe Palestinian American author. And it has been on my list to books I want to read. I own the hardcover version of it. It's very pretty. It's about an autistic main character as well. So I've been very excited to get to this book. So I was happy to fit this on here. And yeah, it is by a Palestinian author. So it counts for that. I was very happy to get Palestine because that was the fifth one I got. And before that, I was like, I don't think I even know of any books by people from this country. So I was very happy when Palestine popped up, and I was like, oh, I actually have a book by a Palestinian author. So, and then last is a second chance author for restoration. This was also quite difficult because I don't have many authors where I want to read books that if I have already read a book that I didn't really like. The one I went with was Al McNichol because I absolutely loved Sparks. I don't remember if it's plural or singular, but I absolutely loved it. It is a middle grade book about an autistic girl, and she like learns about the witch trials, and she relates to them a lot, and she wants to like have a monument for all the women and girls who died because they were accused as witches in like the past. And I absolutely loved it. It was incredible. It was the best autistic reputation I'd ever read. Was really wishing I'd read it as a kid. And because I loved that book so much, I read another book by her, which was Show Us What You Are, I think. I'm not sure what it was called, but it was more like sci-fi based, and I didn't love it as much. I didn't really like it at all, but I don't tend to like sci-fi books. So I want to give the author another chance because I have a lot more books by her that I want to read. And I decided to go with the book that was actually a sequel prequel to Spark, which is Kitty. And that is a short story novella. I think it's like a little over 100 pages maybe, and it is based on the sister of the main character in Spark, Kitty. She is also autistic. I don't know what else it's about. I don't know what like struggles or plots she goes through in this book, but I really love Spark and I wanted to give Al McNichol another try, so I decided to read Kitty. I figured that had the highest chance of success since it was a sequel prequel to the book I absolutely adored. So that is my TBR for Orilium. Those are the 6 books I need to read for Orilium. I will show you this page instead, where it is a bit nicer. The text isn't popping up in front, but it's basically the same. So that's what I'll be reading for Orilium. Then for Everbloom, let's get to that. All of these books, I think, or at least most of them, will pop up there as well because I cannot read like 16 books in a month. So I try to double up as much as possible. For Everbloom, you are also allowed to double up books. So every book can count for 2 prompts. I don't think I did that much, but I might have done that once or twice. So for Aurelian, no, not Aurelian, Everbloom, you have a couple different types of classes. You have to have I think it's 3 this semester of basic classes that everyone has to take. This semester, that's Geography of Everbloom 301, Submerged Cities, a book with a map featuring water. For that, I decided to read Halt Sparrow as well because, wait, did I? One moment. I am gonna open it on a different page so you can't see, and I can double check that that is actually what I decided to do because I now can't remember anymore. Um, yeah, it is. So for that, I did decide to read Hot Sparrow. I was a bit confused because I did use Hot Sparrow for a different one as well, but like I said, you can double up on these. So that is the one that I did double up on. I think I doubled up on like one more, but um, all the Ranger's Apprentice books have like maps in the front, and there's always like a sea or an ocean, or at the very least a lake visible. I think Hot Sparrow has like ocean and sea visible. So there's definitely water on the map on this book. The other class you have to take that is a required class for everyone is Ancient Languages 301, The Power of Ancient Scripts, for which you have to read a book released before 2015, which I'm also reading Hold Sparrow for. I think this was released in 2009, but I'm not 100% sure. It's definitely before 2015 though, because I read this while I was in um, the Dutch equivalent to middle school, which was before 2015, definitely. So, yeah, that counts for that as well. So, those are what I will be reading that for. And there's one more required class you have to take, which is History of Magic 301, for which you have to read The Rise of Magical Institutions, a book featuring academia. For that, I will be reading something more since that takes place at a school. It's not like academia in like a magic school, but it is a school, so it counts. Also, you can see the Chronicles of Weather Right at the top right. I'll move myself so you can see it. That's because that is the group book for this readathon, and I wanted to remember that. For the group book, you can also use it to replace any one prompt. I don't think I did that, but that is allowed. So if I end up not getting to a book, I can just count the Chronicles of Weather Right for that instead. Let me put myself back here again so I can show you everything. So those are all the required classes. Then there are 5 classes that you have to take that are specific to your like department. So I'm part of the Department of Supernatural Investigations. So I have 5 classes for that specifically, and you also have to take an elective. I'm gonna go through the elective first. I think there were like 8 you could choose from, and I ended up choosing Fortune Telling 201, and for that you had to read a book based on a tarot card. I randomly generated a tarot card. I got the sun, and I decided to go for like a rom-com-y book for that because I felt like that personified the sun for me. I don't know anything about tarot, so I don't know like the meaning behind the sun card, but the sun itself is just something that reminds me of like happiness, and I figured this book would definitely count for that because it is a rom-com, and also it has a ballerina on the cover, and that always makes me happy. Things about ballet, like I love ballet movies. I grew up with the Barbie movies, so I love everything ballet through those movies. So I ended up going with Spiral, which is technically the second book in the Of the Eye series by Bel Cabra. I have not read the first one, but they are like romance books, like companion novels. So I think you can read them out of order. I don't usually try to do that. I try to do them in order usually, but I came across this book in the bookstore and I thought it was really cute and I didn't realize it was a sequel. And since it's a companion novel and not a true sequel, I figured that was fine. They're meant to be read to be able to be read out of order. So I figured I would try Spiral, and if I love it, I will go back to the first book in this series as well. And if not, then that's also okay. So that is the elective. Then there are, like I said, 5 classes that are department specific. I'm gonna go with the one that I'm doubling up on Spiral for first, which is The Lost Realm, Worlds Forgotten. Oh, actually, before I do that, every of the department classes has 2 prompts. There's a basic prompt and an advanced prompt. You only have to do one, but the advanced prompts are worth more points. And I decided to try and get all the advanced prompts. I think I did prompt wise. So I am just gonna go with the advanced prompts when I tell you about them. I'm not gonna like go into the basic ones. But for Lost Realm, Worlds Forgotten, for the advanced ones, you have to read a sequel or a companion novel that took at least 2 years to release. So this is a companion novel, like I said, and it was released in 2019, and the first book in the series was released in 2017. So that counts for it being at least 2 years in between. So that's also why I picked Spiral, since that is, I think, the only one that I could easily find where that was the case. Like, that was a very specific prompt that I did struggle with fulfilling quite a bit. Then let's go to the beginning. The next class is the Internal Flame Study of Fire Spirits, for which you have to read a book with fire or red and orange on the cover. And front desk has both red and orange. As you can see, this bag is orange, this phone is orange, her shirt is red. So I will be reading front desk for that. Did I ever actually say what that was about? I don't think I did. It's another middle grade. I've been really in a middle grade mood this year, so I figured I would just let that reflect in my TBR this month to make it a bit easier to read since I'm just in a middle grade mood. It is, I think, about a daughter of immigrants who works at the front desk of her family hotel motel, and I honestly don't know what else it's about, which is maybe why I hadn't told you before what it was about, because I just honestly don't know. But it has a lot of hype. It has won some awards, so I figured I needed to try it out. So yeah, that is what I will be reading for that. I'm not doubling up on anything else, I think. So we're just going to go to the next one. Surviving by Any Means, for which you have to read a graphic novel or a manga. No, that's the basic prompt. I'm doing the advanced prompt, for which I have to read a book that's less than 200 pages. And like I mentioned in Aurelium, Kitty is um, a short book that's like a little over 100 pages, so that counts for that. Then next, there is Art of the Chase, Mastering the Skill of Pursuit and Evasion, for which I have to read a book with a character in pursuit of someone or something. And for that, I'm doing Sleuths on the Loose, since the main character is a detective on the sleuth, on the chase for the truth and for figuring out the mystery. I figured that would count. She wants answers. She's willing to chase for them down. And the last prompt for Everbloom is Creatures of the Twilight Realm, for which I have to read a book featuring mythical creatures, and for that I decided to do Chronicles of Weatherwhy. I'm not using it to replace this prompt, but there are literal dragons on the cover, so I'm assuming there is a mythical creature in here. Can you see that, or am I in front of it? I think maybe I'm in front of it. There, you can see a dragon right there. So I'm assuming there are mythical creatures in this book. So that is what I will be reading for Everbloom Academy. I am so excited to do both of these readathons, and hopefully you are too. I hope a lot of you will join it because these, like I said, are my favorite readathons of the year. But like I also mentioned, oh, actually, I forgot to show you these. Like, this one isn't anything special. This is just what I showed you before. But Orilium has this, which is my student report card. It showed all the things I did in the first semester. So I got alchemy, elemental studies, inscription, and restoration done. And I also did side things for apothecary keeper and leyline train conductor. So that was fun. I decided not to do anything like extra this semester, since this semester has more books in general. And you can also see what I did previous years. So the first year I did Dreamwalker. I ended up getting novice on that. And the second year I did Storyview Frank, ended up getting novice on that. So you can continue with like one calling, and then there are 4 years total to become adept at it. I think this is technically the fourth year. So those who started from the beginning and stuck with one like calling are graduating this year, which is pretty exciting. And then there's also this page, which is all about what I read this year. So these are all from the first semester, and this is just what I showed you in the previous bits. And there's also a year in Eldia, which is her like year-long readathon adventure. And then the Readathon Rebellion, which is what I wanted to tell you about. So, like I said, it's hosted by Eleanor Reads, and you're part of a rebellion, and you have to like rescue one of the leaders from prison. She goes into way more depth. Her drive has a ton of great like background lore. It's really fun to read. But you have basically a board game. you roll the dice and you do whatever is on there. There are also some objectives along the way. You have to do those whether you land on them or not. And I decided to roll 2d6s, and this ended up being the path I took. So I put a horsey on everything I either landed on or the objectives, since you have to do the objectives. And then, oh, wrong thingy. I ended up getting these prompts. So I need to read a book with a dual POV, a book someone else convinced me to read, a hyped book, a book I wouldn't want someone next to me to see, a social media scroll book, so just some me scrolling down social media and picking whatever I see, a book that was published prior to my last read, a book from a different challenge, a book with a weapon on the cover, a book with an action word in the title, and a fast-paced book. So for those, I tried, like I said, to fit in as much as possible of what I was already reading. So I ended up picking Spiral for a book I wouldn't want someone next to me to see. Since it is a romance, I'm assuming there is some spicy content in this, and I wouldn't want someone next to me to read over my shoulder and see that I was reading that. So that's what I went for that. Then a weapon on the cover, I went with Halt's Peril again, since all of those books have weapons on the cover. I think Halt's Peril in particular is a bow and arrow. Yes, it is. Here, that one fits for this side quest. Then what else did I end up going with? Right, a book someone else convinced me to read. I ended up going with Chronicles of Weatherwise, since I am only reading this because Mag loves it, and it is a group book of her readathon. So otherwise, I hadn't heard of it. So she definitely convinced me to pick that up. Then for the social media scroll, I ended up going with something more. That is technically a bit cheaty, but I did hear a lot about it on social media, not like the last couple of months, but like last year. So that's why I went with that one, since I did hear about it through social media. And then for something that what else was there? Right. For a hyped book, I went with Front Desk, since, like I said, that has been talked about a lot. It's like really popular, I think, or at least really well, like liked and renowned in that genre. So that's what I went with there. And then I went with Kitty for a book from a different challenge, since I'm reading it for Orilium and Everbloom. That counts for that, definitely. And lastly, for a fast-paced book, I went with Sleuths on the Loose. So those are the ones for my September plans that I could fit in. The other three I couldn't, because I think these are just all the books I plan to read in September, and I couldn't fit any more into it. So I went to my October TBR for not my October, my August TBR that I'm currently working on for books that I hadn't read yet, or at least hadn't finished yet. I picked books that would fit for that. So I ended up going with The End Crowns All. Do I have that written down? No, I don't. I really need to write down the titles for them so I don't have to keep scrolling. I went for The End Crowns All for dual POV, since it has both Cassandra and Helen's point of view. This is a reimagining of the Trojan War. And I went with Mina and the Undead for a book that was published prior to your last read, since it is older than something more. Um, and it is the group book for a readathon I'm doing this month. I haven't read it yet, so um, that fit nicely there. And then lastly, for the action word, I went with Kidnap on the California Comets, because kidnap is an action word, and that is also on my TBR for right now. So that ended up being it. Like I said, some of these I will try to read in August, but this is a very like self-paced, take your time to readathon. So I figured that was fine. Then, if you watch my previous TBR, there are some prompts that I personally try to do every month. So I try to read a book for the year in LDR Readathon. Obviously, that is a yearly readathon, so I need to do that every month to keep be caught up with that. Same goes for the Bookman monthly readathon. Bookman is a different readathon that also has a yearly like challenge readathon. Those books, however, don't get released until the first of the month, or like the prompts, I mean. So I don't know what I'll be reading for that yet, but hopefully it will be something that I can pick from my already existing TBR. Um, I also usually try to fit in a book from one of my authors that I wrote down at the beginning of the year that I wanted to get through their backlist. I also want to prepare for Yelk in November, so I want to read a book by an author coming to Yelk that I already own but haven't read yet every month. Herkiad is a year-long challenge that sounds for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. So I try to pick a prompt from that each month and go for like one that is a bit harder to just get organically, I guess. If I have any arcs for NetGalley, I want to read one of those every month. And then I have my own personal bingo board that I made at the beginning of the year that I also want to fill in. However, as you can see, both ARC and Yelk have NA not available this month. Because I figured there are already so many books on my TBR. Oh, you can actually see Yelk. Let me move myself. There are already so many books on my TBR that I would not add anymore. It's fine for 1 month. Everbloom and Orilium are my favorite readathons, so I want to be able to focus on those. The others, however, I could like fill in. For a year in Aldia, I had to read a book with a light blue cover. So I ended up going with Sleuths on the Loose, since the majority of that is light blue in the background. Bookemon, I don't know the prompt yet, but hopefully I'll be able to fit that in. And then for backlist, Al McNichol is actually on my list of authors I picked out at the beginning of the year that I wanted to read like all their books from. So Kitty counts for that. And for Herkias, I didn't spin the wheel like I would usually do, but I decided, since I put front desk on my wheel, and that was not on my wheel, but on my TBR, and that was based on like a prompt that was a bit more difficult for me to get to. Um, the award seasons, just because I'm not like very familiar with which books are nominated or receive rewards. So, um, since that was on that list, I figured that would count for this month. And then lastly, for my book bingo, I went with Halt Sparrow, since reading book 6 to 10 of Ranger's Apprentice is on my bingo board for this year. So the arc is also not available just because I don't have any unread arcs currently. I only joined NatGalley pretty recently, and I got 3 arcs, one of which I read in July, one of which I'm currently reading, and one of which I just did not like, so I ended up DNFing. So the last one that I have been accepted for, I'm currently reading. It's on my August TBR. It should be finished before September, so I don't have anything for that. And then here you can see the other 3 books that didn't fill any of the prompts. Oh, actually, oops, I ended up doing something more for Herkiad instead of front desk. It's fine. That is because it has the representation of a Palestinian author, which I guess I figured was more like difficult to just get randomly by picking up books than the awards, but both will fill in my Herkiad, so it does not matter. But you can see the other 3 books down here as well, because those are just also books I want to read this month. So if I open this page, I can just have a quick overview of everything I want to read this month. Also, this book, The Strange Experience of Imogen Good, is the arc I'm currently reading. It does not count for this prompt, but I just wanted to have it like filled in, just so I would remember that I needed to check out what the book prompt was, and remember that I do need to read a book for that. So once Bookemon is released, that star will disappear, and that will be filled in with the current book that fits that prompt. So those are it for my September. It is quite a bit. Most of them are like full length. I think Kitty is the only one that's like short, but a lot of them are middle grades. So that should go easier. I think I only have 2 books on my TBR currently for September that are not middle grade, which is Something More, which is YA, and Spiral, which is an adult novel, which I think is also nice. I don't want to only read middle grades, but I definitely like gave into my urge to just read all the middle grade this month. Um, And I am very excited for this. Like I said, these are my favorite readathons. I think part of why I gave into my middle grade urge is also because Mag from Mag Reads is part of what like inspired my love for middle grade because she absolutely loves middle grade. She reads a lot of it. She shouts a lot of it out. She makes content around it, and yeah, a lot of the ones. Um, she just inspired my love for middle grade to like give into it, I guess. So I wanted to read a bit more middle grade also because her readathon is this month. So yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're also joining any of these readathons, please let me know. Let me know which books you're going to be reading for them, especially for some of the more like difficult prompts, and which prompts you thought were more difficult. Also, if you're doing Orilium, let me know what calling you're going for, because I am really curious. I keep changing my mind on callings, which is why I haven't finished any yet. But I am gonna try to finish healing. So just do that for 4 years rather than just do it for this year and then change again next year. But no guarantees because I tend to want to change my mind again when the next year starts. But that's what I'm gonna be trying this year. Also, I only just noticed I'm very shadowy here. So if I film again here, I definitely need to get like some sort of light from this side because there's like natural light from this side but there's nothing here. So I do now notice that. If I film again here, I will put a lamp there. But yeah, I don't love the background here, but this is my desk, so my like laptop screen won't shake a lot. And I noticed last time I filmed my TBR, I did it just like on my lap on my couch, which I like the background better, but then I kept moving the laptop and the like webcam kept shaking. But that's also because my normal videos I film through my phone, but I like being able to show you all the stuff that I did on Canva. Oh, that is the I wanted to show you again, but I moved the wrong thing. There it is. I like being able to show this to you because I think it's pretty and I think it's nice to see. And I personally always enjoy watching it. So yeah. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you will also join these readathons and have a lot of reading fun in September. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. How do I stop